On a delayed international flight, a well-dressed transgender woman remained calm as a flight attendant accused her of lying and faking her ID. Passengers whispered. Security was called. She quietly placed a black leather card on the tray table. Minutes later, the captain froze, corporate phones lit up, and 2 crew members lost their jobs before takeoff. No one knew the woman they humiliated was the CEO who owned nearly half the airline's fleet. And what she did next changed the industry forever. Before we dive in, tell us in comments where in the world you are watching from. The luxury first-class cabin was quiet, calm, and full of wealthy passengers getting comfortable. Some were sipping drinks, some were adjusting their seats, and others were settling in for the long flight ahead. Then everything changed. A flight attendant named Taryn walked quickly down the aisle, her face tight and serious. She stopped in front of a well-dressed man and pointed at him sharply. "You're not supposed to be here," she said loudly, her voice cold and full of judgment. The man she spoke to, tall, calm, wearing a neat navy jacket, didn't seem surprised. He just handed over his boarding pass without a word. Taryn grabbed it from his hand and looked it over, her eyebrows raised. Then she stared at him for a long moment before asking, "Is this really you?" Her voice had changed. It wasn't just about the seat anymore. She was questioning who he was. Then, without warning, she slapped the boarding pass against his chest, hard enough for people nearby to hear it. A few passengers gasped. Someone dropped their phone. Others quietly pulled out theirs and started recording. One woman turned her head, not wanting to watch. But the man didn't get angry. He didn't shout. He picked up the pass, nodded politely, and softly said thank you. His voice stayed calm. His hands didn't shake. He sat still while the whole cabin felt the tension in the air. Taryn walked away like she had just won a battle, but people around her weren't so sure. Passengers looked at each other in silence, wondering who this man really was. Why didn't he fight back? Why did he stay so calm? What they didn't know was that this quiet, respectful man, his name was Alex Rivers, wasn't just any passenger. And in less than 10 minutes, he would do something that no one on that plane would ever forget. Because Alex had power. And this flight, it was about to become a lesson in what real power looks like. Taryn didn't stop. She raised her voice and said Alex was lying about his seat. "This isn't your ticket," she snapped, waving it toward the rows behind him as if the paper itself betrayed him. People around them turned fully now, heads shifting like a slow wave. A man in a suit across the aisle opened a live stream on his phone. "Drama on Flight 227, he said with a laugh, angling the camera toward Alex like it was some kind of show. In seat 3C, a woman leaned toward her friend and whispered, just loud enough for a few to hear, "You can't just pretend you belong here." Another passenger chuckled nervously. The whisper turned into a quiet chain reaction of ugly remarks and sideways glances. Someone nearby said, "Why do they always make a scene?" Another added, "It's always the ones trying too hard." The energy shifted fast, from awkward to hostile. Through it all, Alex stayed still. He didn't defend himself. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't even look angry. Instead, he quietly tapped a message on his phone, replying to a work email with the ease of someone used to chaos. His thumbs moved calmly, his posture steady, as if none of this touched him at all. Phones were up now across the cabin. The businessman's live stream was picking up steam. Comments scrolled by. "Who is this guy? That attendant is out of line. Wait, is he famous?" A hashtag appeared. #Flight 227. Then another. #Let him fly. Tension grew. Security finally arrived. 2 uniformed officers in dark blue. One of them said firmly, "Sir, please stand up." Alex looked at them and replied gently, "I'll wait right here. Thank you." Not loud, not rude, just certain. It wasn't resistance. It was confidence. Quiet, strong, unshakable. Passengers shifted uncomfortably. Some began to doubt what they were seeing. Because whatever they assumed about Alex Rivers, they could all feel it now. This wasn't over. And he wasn't the one who should be worried. The flight had already turned into a quiet storm when the senior flight manager, Harper, stepped on board. His uniform was neat, his tone stiff with rehearsed authority. Without asking any questions, he walked straight to Alex and said, "Sir, We've received multiple concerns about your presence in this cabin. Taryn stood nearby, arms folded like she'd just passed her burden up the chain. Harper didn't look at the boarding pass. He didn't ask what happened. Instead, he stared at Alex's calm face and said something that made half the cabin freeze. Your identification, he said, does not match your gender presentation. We have reason to believe these documents are false. Murmurs rippled through the rows. Is that even legal? Someone whispered. You can't say that, another snapped. But Harper wasn't done. He straightened his shoulders and announced, We'll be removing you from the aircraft. Please come with us voluntarily. It was the final blow. Taryn nodded as if victory had arrived. The woman in 3C smirked. But others looked uncomfortable now, unsure. A teenage girl filming whispered, This is wrong. Someone else stood up halfway, then sat back down, unsure what to do. Passengers began arguing, some defending Alex, others still stuck in silent judgment. And through it all, Alex stayed composed. Then, for the first time, he moved with intention. Slowly, he reached into his blazer and placed a black leather card holder on the tray table. No words, no drama, just the soft sound of something important being set down. Everyone watched. Harper glanced at it, scoffed, and waved it off. Whatever that is, it doesn't matter here, he said. But the way Alex leaned back, eyes steady and patient, said otherwise. Because Harper thought he had full control. He believed the rules were on his side. He had no idea that the card on that tray wasn't just a card. It was about to rewrite everything. Everything paused when the captain entered. He wasn't supposed to be in the cabin. Pilots rarely stepped out before takeoff. But he moved with urgency, eyes locked on Alex, then on the card still sitting quietly on the tray table. He didn't ask questions. He didn't speak to Harper or Taryn. He stated the name, then blinked like it had just hit him. Everyone back up, he said sharply, voice loud and firm. Now! The cabin fell silent. Taryn stepped back. Harper looked confused. The captain stepped closer, leaned in, and said, Sir, I didn't realize. You should have told us sooner. Alex didn't answer right away. He simply flipped the card over with 2 fingers, letting the gold letters speak for themselves. Alex Rivers, CEO and founder, Horizon Sky Aviation Group. Beneath that, in smaller font, majority lesso, 41% fleet ownership, strategic maintenance partner. The words hit like a dropped hammer. A woman gasped. The man live streaming whispered, Oh my God. Taryn's face drained of color. Phones buzzed all around. News alerts flashed across screens. Airline crisis on Flight 227. Top investor targeted midday. Stock apps pinged. Messages poured in. Someone in row 4B checked her finance tracker and let out a stunned breath. Shares in the airline had just dropped 3 points in 5 minutes. Alex finally looked up. This aircraft, along with 200 others in your fleet, is leased through Horizon Sky, he said. Our company also oversees your engine maintenance program. His tone never changed, still calm, still polite. But now, no one dared interrupt. Harper stepped back, mouth open, as if the weight of every wrong assumption had just landed at once. Taryn lowered her eyes. The cabin, once loud with judgment, was now dead quiet. Because in less than 5 minutes, the man they had tried to remove had stopped a plane, flipped a power structure, and shown them exactly who they had underestimated. The call started coming fast. A flight attendant handed over a satellite phone with trembling hands. It's corporate, she whispered. The captain took it, listened for a moment, then passed it directly to Alex. Sir, the regional director is on the line, he said quietly. Alex took the phone, nodded once, and spoke with the same calm he'd carried from the start. Thank you for reaching out, he said. We have a situation requiring immediate action. His voice stayed low, professional, but his words hit like precision strikes. Your staff falsely accused me of lying about my ticket, claimed my government ID was invalid due to gender, accused me of forgery, encouraged passengers to record and mock me, and caused public emotional harm while delaying a high-cost international flight. No one in the cabin moved. Every word cut through the air like a clean blade. I expect the following, Alex continued. Immediate termination of flight attendant Terrin for misconduct. Formal investigation into Harper's leadership and biased behavior. Mandatory trans inclusion and identity respect training for all cabin staff. Implementation of a new passenger rights and oversight framework within 30 days. And a public acknowledgement of this incident by your executive board. There was a long silence on the other end. Then a simple answer, yes, Mr. Rivers. Understood. Within minutes, it began. Terrin was pulled aside and dismissed. Her name tag removed. She left the cabin with her head down, no words. Harper stood frozen, then quietly accepted a suspension notice handed to him by the captain, who had received it mid-call from the director's office. The plane hadn't moved, but inside, everything had changed. Passengers sat still, unsure how to react. Some whispered. Some looked ashamed. A few stayed at Alex like they were seeing him for the first time. Not just as a passenger, not even as a CEO, but as someone who had every reason to lose control, and instead chose to reshape the system right there in front of them. When the captain stepped forward again, he didn't speak as an officer or company man. He spoke as a human being. He turned to Alex and said, loud enough for the whole cabin to hear, Mr. Rivers, I offer you my personal and professional apology. What happened today was unacceptable, and it does not reflect the values we claim to stand for. Then he looked around, and to all passengers present, we failed in our duty to protect dignity and respect aboard this flight. For a moment, there was only silence. Then a man in the second row stood up and said, I should have spoken up sooner. I'm sorry. Others followed. Even the woman in 3C, her voice shaking, said, I didn't know who you were, but that shouldn't matter. I was wrong. Alex stood slowly, looking at them all, not with pride or anger, but with steady calm. This was never about my title, he said. It was about dignity. Respect shouldn't depend on recognition. It should be part of your training, part of how you keep people safe. He paused, then added, but I do believe people can change, and I hope this moment helps make that happen. Heads nodded. A few people clapped, softly at first, then stronger. As the aircraft finally lifted from the runway, there was a quiet sense that something had shifted, not just for one man, but for everyone who witnessed what grace under fire can truly look like. 6 months later, the airline saw its lowest discrimination complaint rate in years. New inclusion policies have been rolled out across all international flights, with staff undergoing regular identity respect training. Other airlines quietly followed, adjusting their own standards to keep pace. Behind the scenes, Alex launched a foundation aimed at protecting and supporting LGBTQ+ travelers, offering legal aid, emergency resources, and education tools for global carriers. The change rippled far beyond one cabin. Harper faced formal disciplinary action and was moved out of leadership. Terrin, after attending multiple training programs, began speaking openly about what she'd learned and what she regretted. And those once silent passengers, many of them had turned into active voices online, sharing the incident as a lesson, urging others to speak up when silence feels safer. Because it wasn't just about one flight or one mistake. It was about what happens when someone refuses to back down, even with the whole room against them. So if you ever find yourself watching something wrong unfold, don't stay quiet. Your voice can change systems. Record it. Share it. Speak out. Demand better. And if this story moved you, share your own in the comments. Subscribe for more stories that matter. Because silence protects no one, and courage, even quiet courage, can shift the world.